Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, this is your first time listening to the Win with Dice podcast. This is a podcast all about tabletop RPGs. Calvin and I like to take a casual approach to the hobby, and we like to discuss the games that we run and the games that we play in, and we can show you guys how cool the hobby is, and try to get some more gems in the world.
Exactly. We take a casual approach to GMing, so hopefully it feels a little less obscure, a little less daunting to people who might not have tried it before. It's certainly a whole lot of fun. It is difficult at times, but it's also incredibly rewarding. Now, this week, we plan to talk about some updates to the homebrew RPG that Ramon has been working on, as well as some other TTRPG discussion topics that we can get into. But before we get into all of that fun stuff, first at the top, we have to tell people to like and subscribe and all that YouTube stuff that everybody already knows, but we are contractually obligated by the YouTube gods to repeat. But, more importantly, we have to get to the most important part of the show, which is the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yes, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week, brought to you by Calvin. Thanks, Calvin.
Indeed. So, something that came up pretty recently for me, this is going to be kind of spoilers for Gemstars, our magical girls on a fantasy world game. But there was a character that, I'll try to be vague about it, but there was a character that died in the course of a battle in that game. And it is a Mutants and Masterminds game, it's a superhero game, and if you know the system, it's pretty difficult to die in a superhero game. It usually has to be like a pretty specific scenario, and this person did get like surrounded and then blasted with fireballs and hit pretty hard, while the person with the healing powers was like on the other side of the map. It was a pretty brutal situation. We ended on a cliffhanger. We ended up taking a break between those situations and came back to the combat scenario the next time. But something that I really liked that the GM did in that scenario is sort of taking what could have just been like, and I mean, obviously this is a pretty unique example because this is a character death we're talking about. But it was just an interesting idea, so I just want to sort of expand on it into other situations. But what I wanted to talk about was the fact that when this character was being resurrected, on one hand, it was like a power check to do so, because there is one character with like very, very important, very powerful healing abilities. They were able to get there in time. They were able to make their check. They blew it out. They did pretty well on it, but rather than that just being the person's back on their feet, when it came time for that person to be revived, the GM sort of had an individual scene with them describing like what they would have seen at that moment of death. I don't want to get too much into it because there was a lot of like reveals and stuff that went on there, but it was just a matter of like who they saw, I will say, and where they were.
Yeah. It's like it was like an opportunistic moment to kind of dive into a backstory, or just add a little bit more flavor to the game rather than just, oh, now you're like, instead it could have been a really simple ask, right? It's like, oh yeah, did you make the check? Cool, you're back up. But you gotta take the opportunities when they come, right?
Exactly. And like this is a pretty extreme example because I feel like, especially for like a death and resurrection sort of thing, you would want to do that. But it could also apply to even things that are like in your typical tabletop game, like just attacks or making different checks or doing different skills or whatever it may be in your game system. You can take time to like describe those actions more narratively, especially in combat where sometimes like things get to start moving, and if you're in a position where you want to keep combat moving, sometimes you don't really take the time for that. But it's always useful to remember like the stories you're telling aren't just like numbers. Like you're not just throwing numbers back and forth at each other as much as you are on the base level of it. What's on top of that is the actual narrative and the action that you are committing to. So when you're swinging a punch at someone and that punch like your attack just barely misses, you get very close to whatever you need to make that attack. It can be described more as like the person just barely dodges out of the way, or you can feel the wind from this blow rushing by your face, because that is what your character would be experiencing with those particular checks. And I thought it was very interesting how it played out in the scenario of resurrecting this character. But I think that could be applied in general, even to something that's not, like, something more mundane than returning from the dead.
I mean, that being mundane.
Yeah, like that, the usual thing. I mean, it is a comic book game, so we all know. Shout out to anybody who's paying attention to Marvel comic news. Look, characters don't stay dead.
So...
I won't say who, so I won't spoil current Marvel comics, but, like, they'll be fine.
Alright, true. Good old comic books, never, letting a good character stay dead, will always be reimagined, reborn, different dimension.
Yeah, although it does cheapen death in the comic books, and there's a whole other thing about that, but...
Oh, true. Well, all right. Well, yeah, there you go, folks. Here's your tip of the week. Don't let the mechanics get in the way of enjoying a cool narrative moment. I know we're always trying to get from point A to point B the fastest, but sometimes you just gotta soak up the scenery a little bit.
Yeah, just like stop and remember why you're actually playing the game, and it's not just for numbers; it's for the story that the numbers allow you to narrate.
Yeah, you don't have to do physical damage. You got to do the emotional damage too.
Ooh, boy.
remember that.
Yeah, it's really fun being in like a bunch of USP games, and then just like the different flavors of trauma those GMs like to bring.
Cal, it's because you're an easy one. You're an easy mark for trauma, man.
Oh my gosh, I get too into every story, especially ones that I'm personally involved in. But like, you give me just something to latch onto, and I'm gonna be all the way in. This is another tangent, but we have time for tangents. I was watching a video that was just like a review of Need for Speed Heat. And they were talking about how the story was like just very basic and predictable and stuff, and I was like, yeah, I know, but like they put a character in there, and the character had troubles, and I wanted them to succeed.
just a little bit of, just give a character and problem. And Calvin's like, but I want to know how it shakes out. I'm worried.
Yeah, I'm worried about them. I hope they're okay.
Oh my gosh. Was it Tim posted Tim tweeted like he got some new ideas for as a GM, right? Like, as a new cool ideas, and I was like, I'm not even worried as long as Tim doesn't give me any more responsibilities as a character. I don't care. Death doesn't scare my character. It's just like being responsible scares my character. And I would argue that's actually true about a lot. Here's your secret second tip, real close to the first one, guys. Not even into the episode proper, but yeah, players actually fear responsibility more than big numbers.
Those things have consequences.
Yeah. Like people are actually pretty terrified about the consequences of responsibilities, and you can use that to do some real big emotional damage to them. So remember, folks, like I said earlier, it's not all about the physical damage. Yeah. It's emotional damage as well.
You can't roll your way out of feelings.
Yeah, you can't roll your way out of feelings. That's a good way of putting it. We should put that on a shirt.
Yeah. I'd wear that.
All right, cool. So yeah, let's get into the episode proper. To be fair, I think it's really funny that we have different segments, but it's really just the one podcast episode.
Pretty much. So yeah, something that I sort of saw people talking about. Like, I don't know the specifics of the discussion, so I won't get too far into it. But I did see people talking about like settings and scale of settings. And I just wanted to sort of like spin off of that and get into that topic a bit, largely because of what I was thinking of how it related to my own stuff, and how I have like this very large world map, not world map, but like landmass map that probably I should scale down, like physically scale down, and how much I actually do with it, because I focus so hard on where the current party of a game I'm running is, that there's like 3 parts of the map that got pretty, because of like 3 different games I was running, and they were actually pretty largely centered around a similar region. So there's like one particular region that has like a bunch of side characters and NPCs in it, and then there's stuff that's like largely just a name and an idea, and I wonder how necessary it is. So I kind of want to throw to you some, like, how you feel about the scale of just the map in the games you run, because I know you have your own homebrew world, you have games in a couple different spots in it, and I was wondering like how you feel about the scale of it, and if you've put too much into it, or because I mean it's very easy to do when you like to build stuff.
Yeah, to be fair, I put way less effort into my world, even though my world is a complete actual globe compared to your one landmass.
I don't know if that's true. I think you might have more like effort in like the land masses at the very least, like the map itself.
I guess they're drawn and they all have names, but like, and like they have like general ideas, but I don't know. Scaling like the dot fantasy world is not too bad, right? Like if you really think about it, you're not doing anything wrong, Calvin. Like I think that everybody should just start with local town problems and then grow out from there. Like if you think about in the real world, right? Like in Ontario, Canada, right? We mostly are concerned about the GTA because we're close to the GTA, right? And then it's like, but we know that like, I don't know, Sarnia exists, but not necessarily anything that's happening in Sarnia is actually going to affect us, even though like not so directly, right? Like in our day-to-day lives. So like if your players are only in one area, like you only need to go out so far for, you know, the stuff to matter. I'm sure there's like global stuff happening or like people moving about, but if it's not directly connected to the story, then it basically doesn't exist, right? I mean, think about like how big our world is right now, and this is the most connected it's ever been. But still, it's like I really truly don't know what exactly is going on halfway around the world, like on the regional scale, like in like, you know, I don't know, like in South Africa's GTA equivalent. Like I don't know what's going on over there, right. But it exists and people live in their lives, but it doesn't always translate out. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, you do have the freedom to like change things if players haven't seen them yet.
Exactly, and if you're like, to be fair, you haven't finished a campaign in your world yet, or run like a third thing in your campaign, so you only really need to flesh out. Like no one's ever revisited, like you never had to run the same campaign twice, so it's like it doesn't matter if like a new game gets started, you could just shuffle around all those people to the other areas of the map, and only you would know, right? True. As long as if all the players are new, then why would they know anything about your world? It's a fresh new world for them, right? So you could even just repeat NPCs, just put them somewhere else. say that they moved, like.
Yeah, I mean that'd be fun for me, to have someone who shows up in a couple of games. I have had locations show up in multiple games. I haven't really had people as much.
Exactly, right? A wandering merchant is a character in itself, right? It's like an archetype, like it's perfect. You just, anytime you need to have the players like get something, just have the merchant show up. Like it's like the cabbage man, right? Like the cabbage cart, right? The dude is just living his life. It just so happens the avatar is just there to wreck his cabbages.
That is what my world was missing, a cabbage man.
Yeah, right. So like don't like I mean like to also the listeners as well. Like yeah, I think that like scale is relative to the story you're trying to tell. It doesn't actually matter like what's going on halfway across the world, because what's important is whatever your players are doing, because that's the story. Right? Pulling intrigue, pulling like, you know, different political parties, like royalty, like all those big players, like, you know, we know, like I know, like I can like the president of another country has more influence than like the cabbage man of that country. So focus on the president of that country, right? Because you only need to care about the people in charge. You only need to, and only when the players go to that place, then you care about everybody else underneath them. Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah, that is something I was wondering. Is just like when you get to very massive scale settings, like solar system scale or galaxy scale, even And you have like as you were saying, like there's other parts of the world we don't know the specifics of what's going on there, but then you add onto that multiple worlds, and up from there multiple star systems or whatever. Like I can see the point that sometimes maybe you can get kind of lost in the sauce with that, in that you've got too many moving parts if you've got too big a scale. But at the same time, like those things should be centralized around the party, and you could try to like limit the number of moving parts you have in mind or that you're considering, but really all that's real within the game world, all that has to say canon, as best as it can be, is the stuff that's actually been put in front of the players. And even that can be like rewound or retconned if it needs to be.
Exactly, right. And like if you think about like even in Lancer for a solar system, right, it really only matters about like again those GTA locations, like the points of interest, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you don't need to name every city, but you need to know which one's important. You don't need to name every district in that city. You just need to know like where exactly the players need to go, right? As well as like, you know, the idea of scope is like the player, there needs to be like a reason why the players are the only ones to deal with the situation. Either it's like a timing thing where somebody more important can't show up in time. Maybe they're the only ones that know that this is going on, and therefore it's their responsibility because nobody else believes them, right? That kind of deal. Or like, you know, it's like there has to be like that tension where it's like if you don't deal with this now, then it's going to be bad for everyone, or it's going to get much worse, right? The situation needs to call for action for it to be important, so make it be important.
Yeah. There was also something I was thinking about was like the traversal situation, and how that can also make your massive world or your massive scope feel smaller, depending on how much you want it to be, because your travel times can be whatever you want them to be. Like you can completely hand wave them if you want to. Like for that Lancer one shot I was doing, it involved the players going to a different planet and dealing with stuff there. And then that has like a whole planetary scale thing that could also be tied into this discussion. But I kind of just hand waved the time spent on the travel because it was just like to put you where you needed to be for the start of the one shot. So I wasn't super worried about it. Well, actually, no, I shouldn't say that because it's me. I was super worried about it, but I was like, I can't spend time thinking about this. I have to get them where they need to be. This cannot be important right now. Exactly,
right. Like think about like in the real world, for people to actually travel to Mars, it's actually like a 6-month journey, right? And like that's not in the scale of agency. Like so many things can happen. If you were like, oh my god, we have to get to this planet before it blows up, it's blown up. Like you can't get there in time, right? So the scale
it's
of
space gonna blow up in 181 days.
Yeah, right. Like it's you're better off just calling somebody there to deal with it, right? Actually, to be fair, that's why I really like for Lancer specifically. Check out. I'm sure it's because like they like Automata made it, right. It's the Wallflower campaign, right? Because of the setting in that one, whatever's happening on that planet, it's a frontier planet, right? It takes like, you know, a half a year to get to that planet from like the nearest blink gate or whatever, right? So like, yeah, you can send like a signal out, but for you to get aid, it's gonna be like you have to still deal with that shit for at least a while on your own. And like there's only few people on the planet that can like be a cool mech pilot, and you're one of them, right? So it's like, you know, out of even the small population that's there, you're even smaller subsect of that population. Therefore, there's very little room to pass up that responsibility, right? It's like, oh shit, I'm the only, you know, cool gunslinger around here. It looks like I gotta go beat up the bad guys, right?
Yeah. You know, and that, I mean, like you can even use, and like in that case, you can use the scale of the setting as like an influence for the scale of the story.
Yeah, like the actual title is crazy to me that they came up with it. Like there's no room for a wallflower. Like you literally can't sit back. You have to jump in and deal with this shit because nobody's here except for you.
I think I should play that at some point, or at least find an actual play of it.
Oh man.
I have the book. I just was like, That was one of those things that was like, someone might run this, or I might be involved in a game of this one day, so I probably shouldn't read this book.
Yeah, I mean, that probably someone is me. But if you want to watch it, I think Shakra on his YouTube channel was running it. I'm not sure how far they got through or if they finished it, but they have a couple of streams up there, so.
I will read the introductory parts and then avoid everything else.
It's cool, man. Like I had the luxury of being a player in it, and it's wild. I mean, my character died, but it wasn't a duke, so I guess it didn't count.
It doesn't count.
But I had the opportunity to gain like some underlings, I guess, and so I just passed off the mantle of like, you know, the my spot on the squad to like my underling. And it was kind of cool. It was kind of like a cool moment. Like it felt like a tipping point in like a show or something where, like, you know, now the student has become the master and has to take up the mantle and finish the quest. So spoilers, the character that took the place on the team, she actually took the final shot against the final boss, which was like pretty freaking epic. And that's where I got my cool one-liner off. It was kind of cheesy, but like it's not really spoilers, I guess, because like you didn't play the campaign. I probably should have talked about it while I was on, but essentially, like, my character was an upbeat guy who was pretty hopeful. He definitely embodied like the hero type, and basically Duke but not Duke, but a little bit more focused on, like, you know, being like forgiveness or whatever. And the character that took over, she is a little bit more pragmatic. Like, she was not like she was a support role character for a while, but then you know, when the big final battle happened, her mech blew up, so she was on foot, and it was just like I had one more action. I like, you know, it's my turn. I came up and I was like, okay, I'll just take the shot with my rifle, and then I rolled a nat 20, and so I got, and, you know, my previous character just said a bunch of, you know, 80s one-liners. You know what I mean, like action hero one-liners. But you know, I was able to capitalize on that on my new character, to kind of like bring it full circle to be like, now here's the one-liner, like, yeah.
Nice.
So, it's I guess we're talking about scale. We got off topic, but
we sort of did.
Yeah. Tips. Just travel time. Obviously, there's a very big difference between, you know, even though my world is a really big world, I kind of hand wave like months of a journey, versus Calvin would be like, every day we're walking.
Yeah, man. I got a table here. That's the thing, though.
Really hard. Calvin worked really hard on the table, so.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, that's because I kind of really enjoy that still. Although, now that I've done it a bunch of times, part of me is like, well, what if I had a campaign that was just, like, in one city? I don't know if I could do that, though.
But, like, it'd have to be a pretty big city.
Mm-hmm.
And also, not everyone's available at all times of the day, so... I mean, you could split things up temporally, vertically too. I mean, the sewers for sewer notes, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And cities are actually big places. Like, if you have a big enough city, like, you try to walk around like in Toronto, and it's like, I mean, it'll take you like a day, right, to even just get from one side to the other. If all you're doing is walking, right? Mm-hmm. So. If you're stopping, interacting with people, you can only travel so far, that kind of stuff. Like, and especially if you're gonna make a fantasy city anyway, there should just be like all sorts of nonsense in there, right?
Yeah. You definitely use like the scale of any individual location to sort of create your own stories or your own situations in there. Like, it's like a pretty massive place with a lot of people, so there's a lot that can happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think scale can be, like, I think it can really be a tool in your arsenal as a GM if you want to create something that feels like a small story in a massive space. Even something that sets the tone, like a travel time, will help to do that. Even if narratively it's kind of a pain in the butt. And you feel like you want to work around it. it can really do well to help you understand the scale of the thing you're trying to tell.
Yeah, and like think about it too. I mean, one of the fun parts about in Fantasyland games is like the point where the party gets alternative ways to travel, right? Mm. It's like it'll like, oh man, like, you know, as soon as you get like a fast travel options, or like somebody can like fly, or like, you know, you like befriend a wizard and they'll just teleport you somewhere, right? Like those are earned things, right? And it makes the whole experience feel even grander, because then it's like, you know, the players worked really hard so they can get to places faster. And obviously, like, if you introduce like fast travel options, then it's like, then there needs to be like a ratchet up in the tension. Then it's like, okay, we definitely need to use these fast travel options, or else we're never going to be on time, or maybe finally we can get ahead of the bad guy, right? That's like a pretty pivotal thing, being able to just fling yourself across the map and just get in front of an army or something, or like be there before like the bad guy finishes his evil wahaha plot, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Like you definitely, like, if you already have travel time as something that is built into the scale of your world, then reducing that significantly is going to make your characters, like the players, feel even more powerful. And like, that's also like an important thing, like helping your players feel like they're progressing in a game. That's another way you can do that, other than just like making them better at punching.
Yeah.
By making them better, I mean like they get XP and level up and stuff. But there's other rewards also outside of just what's on the piece of paper or the character sheet, whatever it is. I don't know. Okay, well, I don't know if I have much else to say on scale. I just kind of saw people talking about this and thought it'd be an interesting topic. Did you have anything you want to add, or do we want to get into some Grand Saga updates?
We can get into the updates, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So for people who might not know, Grand Saga is a homebrew tabletop RPG, name pending, that Ramon is currently working on. We have a link to the playtest below, so definitely go check it out. Try making a character in it. Try running a scenario. I know, Ramon, you're planning to update some of the narrative rules. So if you want to check it out and try doing a combat in it, people out there, or just try making a character in the system, and see what you think about it.
Yeah, or give it a read. Give me some, was it feedback? I was like, thoughtbacks. That's not the word. Give me your thought. I meant to say, give me your thoughts and feedbacks. My brain was like, that's one thing. Perfect. It's on brand. Grand Saga. It's two things, but it's actually one thing.
Practice your thought feed.
Yeah. We love your thought feeds. But yeah. Shit, where was I going with this?
I don't know. What did you change with the game recently? We also did run a playtest quite recently. I don't know if you want to talk about that a bit.
Yeah. It was a bit of a shit show, but we got a playtest in, and it was cool. The players, I tried out, a major type of enemy, which is like a combination enemy where you put two templates together, so two different NPCs together to make an even more powerful NPC, like, the thought feed, smash them together. And it went kind of well, I guess. I mean, the party did it, and I think it took a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but it's always kind of like that, because we always have to relearn the rules, because changes always happen every single playtest that happens. I'm like, oh yeah, this needs to change immediately, because that's how you get a good product, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, they fought B Akuma, based off of the character Akuma from B Kuma, because I was like, oh yes, because there's a Kuma from Street Fighter, and and had some underlings, and they fought across a bridge of I think we called it Fanta, because it was orange. Molten Fanta that didn't burn anybody, but it was difficult terrain because it was sticky.
It was really difficult to get out of your clothes.
Yeah, it's bad. And that went really well. I think everyone had a good time. I believed we made some changes to like everyone's stats a little bit afterwards, like the base stats. because I think they were a little bit too high for how low of a level everybody was, and there wasn't really that much tension. I think everyone rolled really high on their saves too. Like it was just like everybody's rolling really hot, and the NPCs couldn't really get anything in. But for the flavor wise, I think everyone liked everything. Calvin, what were your thoughts? You were in that playtest, so
yeah. So in there, what I was playing was a combination of Archer and Black Magician. So what I wanted to do, I didn't really get the opportunity to do it a lot, but what I wanted to do was sort of combine, I think we talked about this on the podcast as well, just combine the black magic abilities with the Archer abilities just to give myself some spell arrows that can do some significant damage. Which I didn't get to do a whole lot because I was so focused on just like not getting hit, which is just how a game goes pretty much. Like I don't know if that's a mechanical thing or just that's how the cookie crumbled thing.
Yeah.
Although I did get to use that one move that I really liked from the Archer where you just shoot an arrow into the sky and it comes back down in 1d6 rounds or whenever you call it from a maximum of 1d6 rounds.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, to be fair, like I don't even think the roll's necessary anymore because it should just be like you just get to call an arrow down whenever like you can, right? That would be pretty cool. Like why do I need to roll a d6 and then be forced? Maybe we'll see. Maybe that might be redundant.
Well, I mean, like if terms of that specifically, it would either be if you roll a d6 and it comes down in that round no matter what, or you just choose which round up to 6 rounds. Because you still have it like where the longer you wait, the more damage it does. But then it's either up to you or to the die roll.
Yeah, and you rolled like a 6 on it, right? It was like basically like the max amount, and then it was like, well, I don't know if this fight's gonna last that long, but let's see. Because that's originally why I put it in there, because it's like, you know, maybe the fight's not gonna last that long, and you need it earlier. So then here's this. That's why I changed it. Originally, it was just like it just comes down on the turn. So.
Yeah. I think I mean, personally, I see the usefulness of being able to bring it down optionally. I just kind of like the risk reward thing of it comes down when the D6 says it does.
I do like the gamble, right?
Yeah.
I do like the gamble. But, you know, some feedback I got from the players was, you know, the actions that, like, you know, there wasn't enough, like, universal actions for players to take. So it kind of felt like, even though, like, you know, they didn't feel like they didn't have something to do, but it felt like the options that they wanted, like, they just didn't have as many options as, like, other games in that kind of genre. So then that was like one of the changes is like I made some universal actions, kind of like standard combat stuff, which I thought that like maybe they didn't need it because like there's like every character when you make, it's like there's just so many options to take. I didn't want to give them even more options, but I guess the players were like, yes, I want to possibly like, you know, grapple somebody or like shove somebody or something like that, right? So the new actions or like, so now that the actions go like hide, you go hide, use, which means use an item, escape, which is like you try to escape from being like restrained or something. And mount, which like you basically like shadow colossus a thing, or you just kind of jump on top of it. And now you grab and shove are added. So now you're able to make a flat check, which is a 50-50, and you're able to just grapple a target, so you could, you know, try to hold them in place, or shove, which, you know, deals a knockback to somebody.
Okay, I see. So, and that's just a matter of giving people more things that they can possibly do on their turn. Yeah, I can see why. Because from where I was, like, I had an area thing I wanted to use, and I didn't really get a chance to use it, so I kind of had to fall back to like a basic. I'm pretty sure one of like a couple of my turns were pretty much the same thing, and that I was just like stun an enemy, move, and then set up a shot for the next round, and that was fine for me because I just wanted to keep like looking for the opportunity to use my area effects. But definitely, if I had less options, like for me, I was just focused on the one thing, so like not having I didn't really feel like I didn't have those options, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But definitely,
Yeah, but it was like so focused, right? It was like after the first round, it was basically just rinse and repeat until, you know, the fight's over. To be fair, I think that's like how most other games work, but I think just like having the options available makes people feel better. Like at least like the one or two times where you actually want to grab somebody or shove somebody, then it's like it's there, right? I think about like, you know, when we play Pathfinder, like how many times it's just rolled the attack.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like a lot. But to be Pathfinder is bad. If you will play D&D, then it's kind of like that. But in Pathfinder, there's like 1 billion options of like, you know, special moves that you can do, which is actually pretty cool. Especially if you're like a fighter or something, right?
Yeah, there are a lot of like skill check out actions you can do.
Yeah, like shoving and bashing people and power attacking and tripping and all that kind of stuff. So add a little bit of that flavor into here. And as well, now there's a bunch of new traits for actions. And everything kind of comes under like either attacks or combat actions, essentially just actions you can use in combat. So there's strides now. So strides are basically movement actions. And you can now use as many strides as you want per turn. So if one of your classes gives you a stride, then you can just use that stride as much as you want. And so now there's only dash, and now I added jump, which is like a leaping stride that you get to move half your amount.
Okay, so stride is like a type of action or action tag.
Yeah,
similar to what you've used before. Okay, yeah, I see. Yeah, you just have dash and jump. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so now the action traits. So like, yeah, you had Shred before, which ignores resistances. Point Blank, which ignores any difficulties at close range. Arcing, which ignores line of sight for attacks. Negative Edge, which basically makes an action cost 0 if you use a non-negative edge action before. So maybe I might change that because Negative Edge is from fighting games and people I don't know if there's a lot of cross pollination between those two, so I might change that. But additionally, so now you can't. So Negative Edge also doesn't apply when you're modifying attack with like an incantation or a technique, or if it's a special attack, which is a new combat or it's a new action trait. So special attacks just basically is like a restriction. You can only use special attacks on your turn, and you can only use one special attack per round. So usually they're kind of I wanted to so before they used to cost 2 actions, right? And and that's kind of like the trade-off, right? You make an ability stronger, but it costs you more actions to use, so it's more limited. But you know, if like your class or whatever only has special actions because, you know, you have big bust of moves, right? Then it's like, you know, you only really have to do one thing per turn, which I mean, it's fine, but it's also like, you know, not as fun. I think more is better. So now every action in the game costs 1 action unless it says otherwise. And now all the special actions that used to be 2 actions now just can only be used once per turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I don't really know what all the special actions are, so I'm wondering like if it's necessary to be able to use. Well, I guess you can only use 1 per round. I guess I'm wondering like why you would change it from taking up more actions.
Oh well, so for example, when we had a player use the glaive class, which is like the character class that has the big weapon that, you know, you swing around a giant sword or whatever, and they have access to like heavy damage on a regular hit, right? Which is like, you know, double, like most of the damages in the game are light damage. So if you would just have like access to free heavy damage, you're just gonna out DPS the rest of the party, just period, right? But now all those, like, I think there's one action that isn't special. That's on the I try to figure out if that needs to be a special or not. But most of the special actions from there, like Colossal Chop that does heavy damage, is now a special action. So you can only do one heavy damage to a thing per turn, essentially, right? So it's like it's still cool. You get to use it, but now it's like you can't, like, double up. If you had 2 actions that did, damage, they're usually like kind of more powerful abilities. So, you don't have to, you can't just spam all your most powerful abilities. You have to pick and choose. So there's still a little bit of like trade-off of like which one are you going to use.
Oh, okay. I guess like my thought on that was just that like because you are restricted to only use an action once per turn.
Yeah. But now it's like you can only use one of those special actions once per turn as well. So it's like, again, it's kind of like if you have access to a bunch of cool special attacks that like do a bunch of busted moves, then you're only going to use those. So now it's like, well, you have to figure out, again, just needs to be like not an obvious choice of what to use in the situation.
Okay. Yeah, I can see the direction you're going in. I was just thinking that like limiting what else you can do on your turn also provides that. But I can see yep.
Yeah, but now it's like you can just do more. Like now, like instead of like, if you're using Colossal Chop, you're using 2 actions, maybe you choose to shove somebody first, right? Because Colossal Chop allows you to leap 1 when you target somebody. So you jump into the air and you bring your big weapon down on top of them, right? And you knock them prone and stuff. So the idea is like you can, but now you only were able to, in 2 actions, you only have to do that 1 attack. But now you can shove somebody and then Colossal Chop and you give them the boot, they're on the ground, and then you just slam them down with the thing. But you only can do that once, right? So it's like you just get more options. And before too, it's like if you wanted to apply like a special like a technique to it, right? Like you want to make it blazing, so you light your sword on fire. So it's like, but now they used to take up your whole turn to do 1 attack, but now now that only costs you 2 actions, but you only get to do that once. It still equals out to the same, but it just means that like, again, if you had access to multiple special attacks, you just can't use all your special attacks in 1 round.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Yeah. I can get where you're coming from there, especially in giving people more options. I still kind of like the idea of taking those options away by limiting what you can do, but I can see why you're, especially in the consideration that you'll then also have like multiple chances to do a thing. I can see how you're leaning more into giving them more options as opposed to making the cost higher.
Exactly, right. And also, the NPCs just get more options. These are universal changes, so you're going to be wrecked by even more shit now. So it takes like the one more like burden off of like the odds. Like I want people to just be doing things more often and everything to be faster, but not like I feel like a lot of pain points in like combat is like the decision of like, oh, what do I need to do? But if your options is to just, I could just do all of it, I just need to choose the order in, then it's like, that's even better, right? It's like, now you can just, throw out more attacks, everyone's like doing more things are happening versus like people like stressed out about choosing the wrong choice, making the wrong choice, right?
Right.
Yeah, and it offers more of the kind of combination of actions in your turn thing I'm trying to go for. So, it's less of like, you move and do a thing, but now it's like maybe you move into position for 1 turn and the next turn you just unleash like 5 attacks or something like that. That kind of deal.
Okay, I see. Yeah. Like trying not to have like 2 like super monotonous turns.
Yeah, and like every turn now allows, like, sure, every turn could be the same, but also you have more options, so you could just choose to do something different. Like maybe you need to stop an enemy from like reaching to your back line, so you grab them, or like there's a big enemy like in front of you, just jump on top of them, so like you can get more of an advantage in attacking them and stuff like that. Or you have the choice between like, oh, I need to cast I have 2 spells, I need to heal somebody and I need to do damage. What do I do? And then it's like, just do both.
Yeah. Again, like I get where you're coming from with that. Were there any other updates to the system that came off of this playtest? So I saw you guys discussing it like a bit more on Discord, but I hadn't seen the specifics.
Yeah, so the Glaive got updated because we used it now, and the feedback was that the Glaive didn't really feel like the core ability that you get from the Glaive didn't feel like as like big man swinging a big thing. So now it's the core ability you get is Smash, which was an attack, but now it's a technique. So you could just add 3 knockback to any melee strike, any might strike, and you could send people flying and stuff like that. And now instead of it being one attack, it can be applied to any might attack. So it just kind of like makes it so like you can make all of your attacks be big buster moves now, and you feel it has more of like a better class identity, I guess.
Right, because the Glaive is like this person with like this big sword, so you're trying to focus on like all those might damage attacks.
Yeah, and specifically like this, like before, so like they have like lots of attacks that have area effects, right? Big swooping attacks. But now when you apply the Smash to it, all those attacks now send like several people flying, which I think is way cooler than it was before.
Fair enough.
Just a big buster man with a big buster sword, just whoosh, batting people out of here, man. Yeah,
of course you have to go flying because this is basically an anime.
Yeah, exactly. Anime is I wanted that's the thing too, right? There's no restrictions in what you could pull off in anime. I want this game to be more like anime than anything else. As well, there's no longer focused or braced as a reaction, or like an action, sorry, as an action in the game. Braced and focused are now conditions that other actions can give you, or other items and stuff like that. So now if you want to be able to get an extra die defending yourself, then you need to pick up a shield. Is the easiest way for you to do that. So it makes like shields just way more relevant in my opinion. I guess it's all in my opinion. So yeah, and now focused, you get it from like different abilities. Like I think in the martial artists, there's open chakra. That is a link ability. I didn't go through this, but link ability essentially says that you have to land an attack before you can use a link ability. So it's an enchantment, and you gain focused, and the next finisher strike you use deals an additional light magic damage. So it gives you like extra accuracy and extra damage. And finishers are like links, but except you have to use a link before it, or you have to hit with 2 attacks before it. So that's kind of how it works.
Similar to like the combo actions, but with different like restrictions.
Yeah, again, it's like kind of moving away from all the very, very tight restrictions to more looser restrictions in terms of like the order at which you do things is still there, but you can just do all of them in one turn. As before, there was like, they had to be language where it's like you couldn't carry over stuff because, some actions required like 2 actions to use, or some attacks required 2 actions to use, or 3 actions to use, and then it was like, you have to keep track of like, which stage of the combo I'm in. So now it's all just in one turn. If you're able to if you're rolling hot and you roll, 3 hits in a row, then you can just be like, okay, I'm gonna do an attack, hit. I'm gonna use a link. Oh, sick, it hits. Time for the finisher. Boom. Like, give him the good 3-piece combo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Cal. What you gonna say?
No, I was just thinking, because doing focus was something that I had done a lot, and it really, it helped me make certain roles a bit more successful. I could see it being a useful mechanic. I was just wondering about, the effect it will have to have it sort of based on character aspects.
Well, it's also item based too, right? So now there's in the items, I think there's a consumable. If I look at this, probably. Yeah. So the hyper charm, which is a consumable, it just gives you focused. So it makes it, again, it's like I didn't take away the idea of gaining an extra accuracy on attacks. But now it's just spread out in different places. It's harder to get than just you just use an action, because getting focus is just a no-brainer, right? It's like, oh, I need to hit this thing to kill it. I'm probably just going to focus every turn, which is what you did. But now it's like, oh man, I really need to kill this thing. Maybe I should expend my expendable item to gain the focus, right? As well as now it makes like other people's like for instance the core ability from the Diva Victory Anthem, right? Victory Anthem gives everybody focused on your team if it's successful on the roll, right? So now having a Diva on your team is like that person gets even like, you know, they're even more important, right? But you know, it's not so important where it's like if you don't have one, you're never going to succeed because there's tons of other ways to get focused. Like you know, there's hyper charms. In the accessories there is the headwear, I think it is. Yeah, you have targeting sights, so you can spend an action to just gain focus as long as you have this piece of equipment, because you have like a little scouter and you're like, oh, you know, that kind of deal. There's abilities that that's not specifically focused, where it's like you get cool accessories like there's a bracelet series, which like once per round you can just get an extra accuracy, which is essentially just focus, but it stacks with focus. You know, there's boost brew that does the same thing, where it's like you just choose an ability and then you just get a +1 accuracy on it. There's like lots of different ways to get accuracy on stuff. So I was like, you know, I don't think it's the easiest way to get an extra accuracy, but there still are lots of ways to get accuracies.
Right. All right. Yeah. Okay.
You don't have to worry, Calvin. You'll still make those shots.
It's very important to me.
Now you gotta dig a little deeper to get that sweet extra die, as well as too like now it more relies on, you know, it choose your target better, right? Like prone targets you get an extra accuracy on hitting prone targets. If targets are off balance, you get an extra accuracy against them too, right? So, you know, and you have to work with your teammates to like apply those, you know, different conditions so you can like hit them better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah. I did make a change to arrow volley specifically. So now arrow volley ignores allies. So there you go. You could even use arrow volley every turn if you wanted to, but it's a special action, so you can't use arrow volley and I guess colossal chop in the same round. If that's just the rules, Calvin. You can't have it all.
Oh, when it said that you can't use the special action multiple times in a round, like, does that mean for every special action you only get one per round?
Yes, you can only use one special action per round. So it's like you can only use special actions on your turn, and you can only use one special action per round.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I think maybe I did hear that, but I just might have misinterpreted or misunderstood that for a moment.
Alan was just like, you're changing too much. I don't like change.
Change? No. Yeah, no, that's kind of the thing with this project though, is because you iterate on the combat system a lot. So I wonder, like, when I last played, at least, how much of that is still there, and then how much of that turn is useful information.
That's true. I think most of the names stayed the same.
Yeah.
But that's about it. Yeah, oh yeah, here you go. Bullseye. When you defeat an NPC combatant with an agility shot, you just gain focus. So if you're just able to take somebody down with your bow, you just gain focus, Calvin. Like, just be good.
Okay, well, that's the condition.
Yeah. There's some more changes. The item slots got reworked, so now there's just more item slots now. I've decided that, like, you know, restricting it to being like a very small amount, like, it was like cool and gamey in my head, but also hard to explain, and it doesn't translate well to what people's expectations are. So it's like, now everybody has one footwear item slot, one headwear item slot, one bodywear item slot, 2 accessories, 2 consumables, and then 4 gear, and then 2 just general item slots. And like these kind of represent like general item slots, like your backpack. Gear slots are like, you know, holsters, scabbards, stuff to just like hold like your weapons and other kind of gadgets. Consumable slots are obviously like small bags to hold like potions or like charms and shit like that. And like, you know, you only have one head, so you get to have one hat. But maybe there may be a cool item that makes you be able to have 2 heads. I don't know. That's a possibility.
It's a very important one.
Yeah. Actually, I think that's pretty cool. I might just make that item right now. I need a cool name for it though. So, now it doesn't matter. You can it's still like it doesn't like limit people in terms of like it just makes more sense to me anyway. And there's not tons of items that give you like extra item slots and you can still I still need to make more items, but definitely gives it more space to grow as well. Like there's less restrictions.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at those. I think next time we get into any sort of playtest situation.
Yeah.
I'll want to know my way around those. Because like I was saying before, you have iterated on this combat system quite a lot, so I'm sure that there's a lot of tight stuff in there at this point already.
Yeah.
Just taking some time to like finalize that. We are around like our usual podcast lengths. I don't know if you have any more stuff you want to go over.
I guess if anyone's ever made it to the NPC section, I changed the NPCs. So now there's only in my head there's like I guess like I have to maybe make these changes, but as far as the templates go, I removed the support template and moved those options into kind of like the frontline fighter and the sorcerer and the skirmisher. Like those templates kind of represent like the 3 abilities, like might, spirit, and like agility, kind of like those 3 archetypical ideas. So I was like, and then there was like the support, right? And I was like, well, every kind of like enemy might need a healer or like some sort of buffer or something like that, right? But now I've rolled those into those templates. So now there's like 3, I guess you'd say like archetypical templates for that. And I might roll the rest of it because I have like monsters and like automations for robots, but I might actually just roll those ideas into just those 3 templates and then just have those, because I think it'll be for instance, like the Demolisher frame in the automation is technically just like a frontline fighter, really, other than it being a robot, right? So yeah, I can just roll those ideas into it together, maybe not losing too much of its uniqueness, but also just kind of making it even, again, one step simpler for GMs to be like, oh, I need a dude to soak up damage and be the melee person. Oh, here it is. It's right there.
Cool. Yeah, I think maybe we can do, at some point in an episode, we can go over like making a boss NPC again and see how different it is from the previous one.
Yeah, maybe we should stream a game, like a test session. That might be something we can do.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do I haven't tested like the boss fight mechanics, so maybe we should stream that.
We definitely could. Yeah, we definitely could if you wanted to. Is there anything else you want to say on the game, or should we roll into the outro?
No, we can roll into the outro.
Cool. Yeah, again, I think this is coming along nicely. I think we've done like a whole lot of stuff with the character creation and the combat and the NPC creation. So for people who are listening out there, if you want to download the Grand Saga RPG and give that a try, see if you can make like a new unique character in it based on the classes available, of which there are many. Definitely check out the link in our description, which will bring you right to the Google Doc where the game is residing. As well, it'll have a link where you can contact us, but you can always just like go to our contact form on our site. You can send a message to us on Twitter. You can't send messages on YouTube anymore. It used to be able to, but you can't. But a comment will do. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for the episode. Also, again, just wanted to recommend actually I should probably mention our gaming streams that go on this channel. We've got Sims on Thursdays. We've got Divinity Original Sin Co-op on Friday. We've got Mass Effect on Sunday. I feel like I'm getting close to the end of Mass Effect 3, so I'll find out, what's so controversial about it.
Well, Calvin, good luck with that. We'll see. We'll see. I've seen the end of Mass Effect 3, and shit. I want to see your reaction to that. So yeah, if you want to see Calvin's live reaction to a game that's like 1 billion years old,
Yeah. And then we'll be playing some Dead Space when that's done. So definitely come by if you want to see me get spooked.
Spooky cabin.
Additionally, I wanted to shout out all the people that we have linked to below, including the Untold Stories project. We mentioned them quite a few times. Definitely go check them out, give them some support. Also, since I brought up Mutants and Masterminds before, I was just thinking about the Masks and Mayhem podcast. And on their YouTube channel, they started a stream recently, I think a few days ago by the time you're hearing this, for a new series called Redacted Rangers, which is essentially like a Suicide Squad, Thunderbolts kind of thing. They've got quite a large cast there, but they're going to be cycling through them on different games. And they had a session 0 to sort of introduce the people who were playing, so I might include a link to that below. There's some familiar faces on there for people who have seen the Untold Stories project channel, or other stuff that Green Ronin does. But I think that's gonna do it for now. Ramon, is there anything else before we head off?
Nope, but I think we're good.
Groovy. Alright, well, for all of our GMs and players lost in space out there, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys!